Let's go ahead and get started then. So welcome everyone. My name is Joel Vallet. I am a professor in the Masters of Public Administration program. Derek knows where we're at. Housed within the Political Science Criminal Justice Department. Excited to be able to partner with just the one partner in this university, specifically the Career Center, help you understand USAJobs. So a little bit about my professional background. So before I went back and got my PhD, I worked for Sandia National Labs and the Department of Energy. I had the opportunity to interact with the federal government on a regular basis. I also, prior to working with Sandia, I got friendly with USAJobs as an undergrad and as a master's student, trying to understand how do you get into this federal system. Now, working for Sandia, I took a little bit of an alternative approach. Began working with the federal government, and we can talk about that later. And then we'll also have a friend of mine, JeriAnn, who will talk to you about her experience. She currently works for the the NNSA, which is DOE, and then it also has experience with the DOD, which is the Department of Defense. So excited you're here. This is a great opportunity to be able to learn about USAJobs, working with the federal government as well. There are a lot of wonderful benefits that come from working with the federal government and having that experience. So with that, we'll spend time with Briget and we'll go from there.
It's good to see you all. I'm Briget Eastep, and I have the best title on campus. I'm the executive director of Outdoor Pathways, so I can get away with like wearing my hiking shoes to campus. You know, I take it as a compliment when people say, "You look like you're hiking." And what I do is our whole department runs outdoor experiential programs that are geared towards getting students into public lands. And so we do that in partnership with all these folks. Our largest program and the one most relevant to today is the Intergovernmental Internship Cooperative, or the IIC. We just turned 15 last summer, and we placed 250 interns in public lands places in that. The other thing that we do is we try to coach them along with their mentors to actually get jobs after their internships. And it's worked every summer. We call the cohort from 5 years ago and say what you're doing, and 35 to 42% of them are still working in public lands. So we kind of figured out how to get people experience and then get them through USAJobs so that they actually get jobs and careers that they love working in public lands. So we've worked with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, the U.S. Forest Service, and we're starting to work with state parks in that. So there's a lot of state parks doesn't matter for this one. And Joel, we have to catch up because my stepdad worked for Sandia for 30 years.
Everyone worked for Sandia for 30 years.
Yeah,
It was a great place to work.
Yep. So the whole thing about USAJobs is to make your experience count, because it's really a system set up by the federal government to make sure that they are getting qualified people into positions in it. And so you just have to convince the system and the hiring authority that you have the experience to match it up in it. So I'm going to go pretty quickly through this so that you can kind of just see what it looks like and how it feels. And then I'll say that if anybody wants a copy of this PowerPoint, we can get it to you. But you're also welcome to come to our office in the Leadership Engagement Center, and we're happy to actually help you with things as well too. So we're going to go through USAJobs. We're going to figure out how you find jobs that you're interested in, because again, we're running the gamut from like national laboratories, which do a lot of technical things in that, to being a wildlife biologist. So there's a whole gamut of opportunities within the US government within that.
It's sharing weird on Zoom, so we're just gonna fix it real quick. Sorry, you can keep
Okay.
Briget.
So for that, you get to develop a federal resume, which is different than like the 1 to 2-page resume that you're told to do for everything else within it. So, and then to figure out again, how to make sure that the system knows that you are qualified. So USAJobs is a job site that has thousands and thousands. I don't even, probably over 100,000, if not, it gets up there, jobs in that. So figuring out what kind of job you want is the first thing. And then being able to get through that to actually applying for the job is kind of the next piece of it. So any federal position is posted through USAJobs. There are, again, ways to work with the federal government that is not a federal hire, but through a partner organization or as a contractor. So there is that side of it too, as well. Things that you can do is, again, talk to your professors, talk to your mentors, talk to people that have the jobs that you want, and figure out the job categories, because there is a job category for everything in there. So the next is to figure out where you want to work, because you can also target the locations, which is great. And then you, again, are going to look for the pay grade that is most applicable to your experience. And one of the funniest things that I've seen in the last few years is that people get a bachelor's and they're like, I'm going to go for a GS11 and be the boss. And we're like, well, you might actually want to start at like the GS3, 4, depending on your experience, and actually work your way up to 11. So either that or get your PhD, which you could do that too. So, and then again, like figuring out the correct hiring paths for it. In the conservation world, there's the Public Land Corps Hiring Authority. So anybody who works for a partner organization like the IIC and does 640 hours of conservation work actually can do the Public Land Corps paperwork, like that just verifies your 640 hours of the projects you did, and you get put in a merit pool. Other ways to get into a merit pool is through veterans hiring status and things like that. The other thing to know that is really nice is that if you have a disability that you've gone to the disability center to work with, there's a Schedule A hiring authority that is really handy within it. So there's a lot of different hiring authorities that you can get through to do that. There's also recent grads, and there's different programs within it. So there are other ways to do it. So to find a job that you're interested in, you create a USAJobs profile. And in that you will build on this profile for it. So keywords, occupation series, all of these things are the things that you'll go into. You can also save your searches and send yourself new postings once you get into that profile. So that's the first thing to do. All right, the next thing to do is to find the jobs that you want. The GS scale is the government rating scale on how much experience and how much pay you will get. The good news for you all is that that pay scale has been going up. With McDonald's offering jobs for like $17 an hour, the federal government is like, wow, we're competing with McDonald's now. So that's good news for you all. If you go into the fire world, the minimum is $15 an hour. So there's lots of different ways to look at that. But basically, a GS 1 to 5, you don't need a college degree. In that, a GS 5 is the entry kind of level for graduates with a bachelor's. GS 5 to 7 are in that piece of it. And then once you get into the GS 9, they're looking at master's degrees or 2 years of graduate level education or experience. And there's always that or experience within the USAJobs world. So, and then the GS 11 is experience or a doctorate within it. So in that, once you get into the jobs, is there a way to move the screen for the?
You can
JeriAnn.
minimize that.
Yep. And that. Okay,
And then slide it out of the way.
I think that worked. Yeah, because again, what you're doing is you found a job that you're interested in, and then you read that position announcement like 100 times and get to know it, because this is all the key to it. So again, you get the position information and you make sure, all right, I'm on the right path. You look at, all right, it's a GS 5 through 7. That shows that there's promotion potential in that. Duty location, okay, it's in Southern Utah or Alaska. I'm good with both of those in it. And some job titles, again, are going to be nationwide searches. So you put your name in the hat and you might get a call from Arkansas, you might get a call from Alaska in that. The other piece of it is who may apply. Look for, as a recent graduate or as a soon-to-be graduate, look at pathways, the PLC I just went over, open to the general public, but you can also look if you have veteran status for those things. And there's in that. And then again, look at the job summary and make sure that it's where you want to be within it. There's more opportunities for teleworking these days. Did I get there?
Click on the screen and it should. There you go.
Okay. Yep. The other thing to look, and this is where you start really getting to know the job position or the announcement, is the key requirements. And here's where you start matching those key requirements to your experience and your education, and you count everything. If you have been a volunteer and you've interacted with the public, you count it. So it's really, and that's where it's like you look and you give yourself credit for everything that you've done without making it up. And there's a fine line there in it. So no, on your resume, you've also got to show, like sometimes it'll say like 52 weeks of experience. And you've got to show on your resume those 52 weeks within it. So know that it does get pretty specific, and you want to make sure your resume actually backs up all of those qualifications. And you basically go through all those qualifications and make sure that there's a line. This is one place where it's like you can like paste and copy, but then edit so that the computer scanner can actually pick up on that experience. So that, but then you have to verify it, if that makes sense, in the place and the time within your experience. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. In it, the way that you're evaluated is first there's a computer screening. They were one of the first folks to start using AI to actually like go through resumes and to weed out people that are qualified from those that aren't qualified. So if it says 52 weeks of experience, you want to put in your resume somewhere, I have 52 weeks experience counting bats or whatever it is that you are doing within that. And that's where you kind of really go through it. And then from that, you are going to be asked to do a questionnaire as well, which I might get to in just a minute. But in that questionnaire, it's going to, again, verify your experience. And in that, it's like you're giving yourself credit for everything that you do within it. So follow the how to apply documents. It kind of walks you through it. And then be ready to put in your federal resume, which you built in the profile. And you can build more than one resume in there. So I have folks that work through the IIC that are like, I'm going to go for recreation biology because I'm a recreation biology major. And so that they have a recreation like federal resume, and then they have a biology federal resume in that. So you have your resume, you have your self-assessment questionnaire that is in every job position. You have your transcripts and you have your cover letters all ready to go. And then you just kind of upload it. So once you've done the work and know that the work is going to take a lot of time, once you've done the work, it's really actually pretty simple to upload things and apply for jobs in it. Let's see. The other thing is there is an agency contact there. Feel free to actually call up that person and ask them good questions. Like, don't just say, hey, you want to hire me, but ask them really good questions and make sure that you've got the sense for the job. And just, again, don't expect them to like remember you, but put it in. So So those are the components of the federal application. One intern that I know that has done really well in applying for federal jobs, he's still kind of in the seasonal workforce. He wants to be a park ranger. And so he's done 2 seasons already. But the way that he gets offers is he actually goes to the application questionnaire. And then he builds his resume in it. So you can do things like that. And he pretty much just says like interpretation, can do like research and has 52 weeks experience giving talks to the general public in national parks. So he really just kind of like goes over. And the other thing to know about the questionnaire is it kind of gives you you have to rate yourself like, I can do this. I can supervise people doing this. I can do this with help or assistance. And so you just kind of, again, have to give yourself credit for where you're at, but they're looking for you to be qualified within it. So, and you just kind of have to click all the way through it. I've talked a lot about this, but again, like really look at it. In this, we have some resume templates. And again, I'm happy to send you this PowerPoint so that you can look at the templates in it. But really look at everything that you've done and give yourself credit for it. Again, you're going to have to put down your supervisors' names, your job titles, trainings, career accomplishments, awards, education. If you do projects in class, you can also count that, which is a really good way to get it in that. And then the application questionnaire, just a little bit more, is again, being able to self-rate yourself so that you can actually back up everything that's in your resume. So they basically want you to put in your resume and then back it up with this self-assessment within it. So other things, again, that you'll need is writing cover letters. Makes a really big difference. And this is the one place that you can stand out from your peers, is writing a good cover letter and not just saying, I'm cool, hire me, but actually doing your research, like putting in like the mission of the agency that you're going for or the department that you're going for, and being able to tie your experience and how you're going to best serve them, as opposed to like, I'm cool, give me a job. That makes a really big difference in it. And then again, in that resume and that cover letter, just kind of making yourself stand out, but in that. And then know that it goes into a black hole. So it could take 80 to 180 days to figure out if you have an interview in it. So yeah, yep, it's lots of fun in that. So the other thing that you can do is, again, network before you even apply. Get internships. I know that there's a lot of our mentors at the IIC who actually want to hire the people that they have been mentoring, because again, they've developed relationships with them and they know they're going to do good work. And so they help and they coach, and that's really a good place to be. So network before you apply, like call people up and say, hey, you've got a cool job. Can I get to know you a little bit? And then you've just got some advice in that. So I think that is my time. But on the IIC website, we also have a USAJobs kind of cheat sheet that will walk you through it as well. And all right, I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter.
Awesome. Let's give Briget a hand. That was great.
Okay. I'm going to hopefully share my PowerPoint. And we'll just be talking a little bit more about creating those federal resumes and just going a little bit more into detail. Is that pull up okay on your end?
It's overblown.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. No.
So did you start the slide presentation?
Yes.
Instead of having on display, just do it from your line. Like,
Just do it from here.
yeah. Can you
Does that
see
work?
that?
Okay, perfect. We'll do it from there. All right. So, actually, a little bit of background on me. My name is Clara Webster, and I'm a career advisor here at SUU. So I help with not only federal resumes, but also any resumes, interview help, any cover letters, things like that. So we'll talk about this today, but if you have any other questions about career help or guidance, anything like that, please don't hesitate to stop by our office. We are just up on the second floor in the rotunda. So just where the academic advisors are. So with federal resumes, it can be a little bit complicated. You know, writing a normal job resume is already kind of a pain, and federal ones just make it so much more fun. Few similarities that they do have, both federal and kind of professional resumes. You want to target towards the job. Briget talked a lot about that with those keywords that are in the job posting. Those are crucial, and that's really, if you take one thing away from this presentation, take this away, that you need to use keywords in your resume. Other things, you want to list your experience in reverse chronological order, just like you would on a normal resume. You want to have very professional formatting. There are some areas like, graphic design or some more, artistic fields where it's okay to have graphics and stuff on your resume. With the federal government, that is not an option. So you want to have very professional formatting. Then you want to list your contact information and experience in education, just like a typical resume. That's where most of the similarities stop. So one of the big differences with federal resumes is they're a lot longer than your typical job resume. The typical resume, employers will look at it for 5 to 20 seconds if you're lucky. And so you have a page, maybe 2 pages to get them the information as quickly as possible. With federal resumes, that is not the case. Typically, they'll be somewhere about 3 to 5 pages long. I wouldn't go more than 5, but somewhere between 3 and 5. And starting off with the header, there's a lot of different things going on here than we see on a typical resume. So you do want first name, last name, address, you want your full mailing address on there, and then email and phone number. But then underneath that, we have all these other things like you want to list your citizenship. So if you're a US citizen or if you have a work visa, right, you want to list things like that. Highest GS grade if applicable. So like if you have worked through the IIC before and do have a GS grade, you want to list your highest one on there. If not, you can just leave that off. Special hiring authority, like Briget was saying, with veterans, with a disability, recent graduate, if any of those are applicable, you want to list them right under your header. Also your availability, if you want to work full-time for a place, if you want to work seasonally, right, things like that, you want to list those. And also desired locations. So, if you're want to move up to Alaska and that's one of the options that's on the job, put that there. So I think we're seeing some people go, nope, no, thank you. Let's see. Other differences.
Usually our jobs in Alaska.
What was that?
So they're usually our jobs in Alaska.
Yeah. So anybody want to go to Alaska, you'll be in good hands. Other differences include things that you list with your experience. And this is partially why federal resumes are so long, because you need to include all of these details with each job that you have. So you'll notice we have, the job title, where you're working at. You want to make sure to have the dates, both the month and the year. But you also include hours worked per week, which is something you don't typically include on a resume. So you want hours worked per week and the pay. That's something else. So whether, like this example, we got $16 an hour, or if it was salary, you'd want to put $50,000 a year, right? Other things, you want the employer and their full address there, work site if it's applicable, and then your supervisor, you want to list them and their contact information. This person had their phone number and email, and you want to list if the federal government can contact them for reference. So right here we've got may contact, or you put don't contact, may not contact if you don't want them to be a reference for you. So, and that's just the header of the job, not even the bullet points. So now this is an example of a description for a job, that same job that was on the previous slide. Just like Briget was saying, give yourself all the credit that you possibly can, and you want to target it very much towards the job. So this person went through, and in the job application, it said we want someone who's really good at answering questions and giving talks, providing services and safety, and guiding parties and roving. So they split up their bullet points into those 3 sections to make it really easy for the employer to find all that information. And then they added bullet points there. You'll see people doing this format, or you'll see people that have just paragraphs or even bullet points, but each job description is usually pretty long. Other things that you want to pay attention to with your bullet points is quantify, think money, and think time. So with quantify, we've got 2 examples there of 2 different bullet points. One that says wrote news releases, cool. And then one that says wrote 25 news releases in a 3-week period under daily deadlines. And we can see, you know, if I'm looking to hire between 2 people and one of them had that bottom bullet point over the top one, I want to hire them, right? Adding those numbers in really sticks out to employers and makes your qualifications seem a lot more impressive, right? Also thinking money, any way that you've been able to save a place money that you've worked at, you want to show that, because federal government's all about, you know, saving money, right? So it's good to add that in there. And then also time. You know, any time that you've helped speed up some type of process, or even just, you know, assisting with making sure things are happening on time when they're due, is good to show as well. Let's see, other differences. With typical job resumes, you usually have like a summary or skills section, education, experience. That's typically it. With federal resumes, you can have all of these on there as well as your education and experience. So like computer software, you know, if the job that you're applying for is really geared towards using a lot of different technologies, put in all the computer software skills that you have. Same with languages, organizations that you're a part of, any additional like job related training that you've received, any honors and awards, and volunteer work. Volunteer work is pretty big too. And then another one is a references section. This is something that we don't typically want to have on a typical resume, but with a federal one, you want to list 3 references and indicate if they're professional or not, and all their contact information at the very end of your resume. So this is a nice way to kind of format it there. Let's see, okay. Things that you want to leave out. Sometimes people get confused with federal resumes and think they need to add their social security number. Please do not do that. And then also if you happen to have any classified or government sensitive information, definitely don't put that there. And photos of yourself. This is the biggest one. If someone from the federal government gets a resume with a picture on it, immediately goes to the trash. They do not like seeing pictures on your resume. And then any like personal information, any of those protected classes like age, religion, gender, all that type of stuff. And then make sure they can access your documents, nothing encrypted or anything. So just like Briget said, you can create a resume in the resume builder on USAJobs, or even upload federal resumes you already have. Some jobs will ask for one or the other. Typically, from what I've seen, most of them will say you can use both, just like we see right here. You know, you can create a resume or upload a resume into your account. And it's good to have one of each in your account. So then no matter what the job posting says, you're like, okay, I'm ready to just target this one. Here we go. There's my USAJobs one, or one that I've uploaded. And then building a resume in USAJobs is really simple. Here's all the steps that it takes you through right here. Just has you go in there, add in all your work experience, and it'll have boxes for your salary, your hours, right? Like it'll ask for all of those things. And then education, and it'll pop up with this new screen of all the other sections that are optional, and you can go in there and add what you want, and then it'll give you that resume. I would recommend with the USAJobs template going in there and formatting it a little bit more, just so it's a little bit more unique, but it's still built with the USAJobs resume builder. So, and then if you're wanting a great already built out resume format, there's one located right on SUU IIC's website. Those screenshots that I showed you throughout the presentation are all from that resume, and there's comments in there that the IIC has put in there explaining more of like, this is what to put in these sections. So it's super helpful. So on the SUU IIC website, under forms and tools on the menu that's on the left-hand side, and then if you go to intern tools, and then right here, federal job resume template, it opens up a Word doc, and it's super easy to just go in there, change up all your information, and then You'll have a perfectly good and very nicely formatted federal resume there. So, perfect. Yeah, we've got lots of time for JeriAnn. So, does anybody have any questions at all about building federal resumes? Yes,
Well, this slide, I guess this presentation be made available to us.
we can make it available. Yes, so, yeah, and we are recording this. So you also have access to that as well. Yes.
Let's say I like had a job in high school that was applicable, but my hours varied. Like some days, some weeks I would work 10 hours, some weeks I'd work 20 hours. What would you say to put for like that hourly wage or hourly time commitment that they're asking for?
Great question. Yeah, and that's pretty common with a lot of part-time jobs, right? And so I just say do the average, right? You know, if some weeks it was like, 10 hours, some weeks 20, 15, right in that sweet spot is what I would do. So, and it just, like, they like to see that for, GS levels and determining your experience, but, 10 versus 12 versus 15, it's not gonna make like a huge difference. So just kind of go with the average there. So any other questions? Okay, perfect. I'm gonna start getting things set up for JeriAnn and
Perfect.
yeah.
So I also just want to invite you all to, as you're working on that resume, take the time to meet with Clara, have her look at it. I've spent time looking at Clara's own resume and it's great. Like she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. So take the time to schedule an appointment with her. She can go over those steps and make sure it looks good. Again, I'm excited to be able to introduce JeriAnn. JeriAnn, like I said, we worked together at Sandia National Labs. And when I say we worked together, we like worked really close to each other because when she was first started with the department we were in, we got stuck at the same desk where she used my PC and I used the laptop. We were like elbow to elbow bumping into each other the entire time. So it was a great experience. But JeriAnn's a go-getter. She was incredible to work with. Her and I shed tears together as we went over contract file reviews where we had our contracts with the Department of Energy scrutinized heavily. And so I can tell you that she did a lot better on her contract file reviews than I ever did. But after working with Sandia, JeriAnn moved and worked with the Department of Defense, and then has moved back to Department of Energy land and working with the National Nuclear Security Alliance, which is a sub-autonomous agency under the Department of Energy. One of the reasons I'm excited to have JeriAnn speak to you all is she's hired under USAJobs and has that experience, and then she's worked with the federal government for let's see. JeriAnn, you all said 10 years now?
Almost
between
7.
Sandia and the DoD.
Between Sandia and federal service, it'd be 11.
Volume on that monitor,
No.
on the monitor itself.
Oh, on the monitor. Oh,
Okay, try talking now.
11 years.
11 years. Okay.
I think it's coming out of the laptop.
Oh, is it coming out of the laptop?
Yeah, wait, talk again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, JeriAnn. It's coming out of the laptop.
Yeah, and I unfortunately can't share my video. It says the host has stopped it. So
Oh,
Is
Well-
there a way to connect that up to this or no? I have no
Volume?
idea. Yeah.
You just change the speaker on.
Speaker.
On Zoom itself.
Got
And then
So-
change the speaker.
got it.
You should be able to share now.
To the USB audio or?
Yes.
Yes.
The audio for the speaker.
Okay, JeriAnn, try one more time.
I'm not able to start my video. Still comes up with the same error.
Speak really loud when it does work. Maybe try the built-in. Or is that what it was on?
That's
before?
it. Should.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, JeriAnn, one more time.
No, that's fine.
Perfect. Okay. And then she should be able to do video.
Yeah,
now.
try sharing one more time.
Oh,
Says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it.
If you go to. If you go to the participant list.
gotcha. She's on the panelist. And
You can make her a co-host.
Yeah, make her the co-host.
Yeah.
perfect. Okay,
There we go.
There we are.
You've got superpowers now.
Hey, everyone.
JeriAnn, thank you so much for joining us. Also, if you see Marlene, give her a big hug for me, will you?
I know I actually need to get lunch with her, Joan and Joe. They're usually my my guys over at NTES that I go and get lunch with. So
Please do. Give them all a big hug from me.
we all miss Paul.
I know, it's in Boston, though. I can't give it.
No, thank you for that warm welcome.
Thank you. So I'll turn the time over to JeriAnn, let her share her experiences. And if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. JeriAnn, the time's yours.
All right. Yeah, so just a little bit about me. Joel went over it a little bit, but primarily my career has been in contracting. Some may ask, what is contracting? Well, in layman terms, it's essentially purchasing for the government. Formally, it's obligating the government to contractual arrangements while prudently obligating taxpayer dollars. So looking out for those taxpayers, including myself. In my federal career, I've primarily worked for the Department of Defense, specifically Air Force, and part of my time with Space Force. And most recently, I returned home, like Joel said, with the Department of Energy under the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA. And that's, yeah, where my career started, where I met Joel and worked under Sandia National Labs contract, which now I'm actually the contracting officer, one that oversees the Sandia National Labs $4 billion contract. So before I dive in, I do want to just disclaim that anything that I talk about today is my personal opinion, my experiences, and it's not on behalf of the US government or any agency I may mention. So I just wanted to put that out there. And to get started, USAJobs postings, you've got internal postings and you also have public postings. So sometimes you may have a friend that's like, hey, my job has some postings out there, and you're like, I can't find them, the link's not working. Well, it may be that the agency had an internal authority. So if they have many hiring authorities, each government agency actually has different authorities. And it might depend on because locality, because, you know, like you guys mentioned, Alaska, it is hard to find people that want to work in Alaska. So they have special authorities. Contracting, it's hard to retain those. So they try and do as much internal hiring and promoting within. So a lot of agencies have that. And then other means aside from USAJobs, simply Google search talent acquisition or talent agency, career agencies. They are really helpful in always looking for people outside of the federal government to hire, specifically those that are in college wanting to start their career. So really just talent acquisition teams with any agency that you may think of working for. They most likely do have a team like that. And then how do you apply effectively via USAJobs? The two that presented before me, you guys did a great job. Keywords is a huge thing. Although you don't want to plagiarize and you want to be honest, it is important that you put in keywords that are closely related to and associated with the job posting that you're interested in. One of the first ways your resume gets through the system is by doing that auto check, and the system checks for those keywords in your resume. And then preferences or special hiring authorities may also include military spouses, veteran, disabilities, those in the reserves, those in the National Guard. Always look out for those special authorities to see if the job posting includes those, and make sure you take credit for any that may apply to you. And then security clearance requirements. So in the world that I've worked with the federal government, it's always involved a security clearance. So although it's not always required for those that are starting a career, it may be appealing to an agency if you've had a clearance before. So make sure you put that within your resume, that you've held a clearance, from what years you held your clearance, what level of clearance was it, and what agency was it with, because there's a lot of different security clearances out there. Other document requirements. So yes, your resume is always needed, but there's other documents that in the fine print of the job posting that might be requested. The examples that I can think of are those that are with the federal government already. Those that are already with the federal government, most often they want to see certain official federal government documents that are related to you. So your SF-50, your latest one that will show like your latest salary. So that way they already expect what grade or level you'll be hired at. And then also your appraisal, how well did you perform in your last job? And then they did mention it earlier, a questionnaire. You want to make sure that you really truly take the time in reviewing that questionnaire and how you're answering it, because that really does affect whether or not your resume moves forward into the next process. What's that next process? That is essentially the second set of eyes sifting through the resumes. So each agency has personnel that actually go through every resume that's received to make sure that the automated system applied it to the correct, whether it goes out of the system or it goes in for possible interview. So those are just some takeaways on how to apply effectively. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? And really, what have I seen as a hiring official? Really, it was always a myth in my mind of whether or not it's an automated system that pulls keywords, or does someone really physically go through them and look through the resumes? It's both. So I did learn that. I received confirmation that that is the process for USAJobs. And then every agency is different on how they hire, how they contact you for interviews, how they address background checks, how they address whether or not they want to proceed with looking into whether or not you're eligible for a security clearance. They all handle it differently. It could be via phone, it could be email. Don't be surprised if someone from the federal government is asking for your social security number. Even though your job posting might not require a security clearance, they usually require a background check and they need your social. Just make sure you safely distribute that. A lot of times I would rather just call the person after receiving an email from them, making sure, hey, is this valid? What do you need? And giving it to them over the phone versus any sort of password protected email. It's just not worth it. Let's see. And also another big thing, a lot of times we're focused whenever we're applying at USAJobs, what are the qualifications? And we really lose sight of other sort of requirements we may be signing ourselves up for. So when I started in the federal government, I signed up for essentially it was a student intern program called a Copper Cap. It's specific to the contracting career. Service agreements is something that is common in those types of student internship programs, where I essentially signed up and promised that I would commit 3 years to that agency, not necessarily the organization, but the agency. So the Air Force, I was stuck with the Air Force for 3 years after I finished my program. And then another thing is PCS commitment. So a lot of times people may think, sorry, that's my work laptop. A lot of times people may think that it's for Albuquerque, New Mexico, but really in the fine print, it says you may have to PCS or relocate in the event of such and such. So just be in the lookout for that. And it's just not saying that a PCS will happen. And when I say PCS, it means move to a different state, move to a different location. If that's on there, just ask the question, because sometimes it's one of those templated statements. And a lot of HR personnel that put those postings out there forget, and they'll let you know whether or not it's applicable. And then Claire did a great job on talking about resumes in the federal government. They are not anywhere near an industry's resume. They are not short and brief. They are long. Mine is, I could be 6 pages. I think I eliminated a page recently. So I'm at 5. And there's a lot of details in it. It's your education. What's your GPA for each level of education you've earned, your work experience. And with your work experience, a lot of times, and Clara hit on it, is you really want to make sure you mention the impact behind it. Like the mission impact or how efficient you were in doing it, just make yourself more appealing. And then your title, your salary, your grade, whether or not you're full-time, part-time, your employment dates, accomplishments, awards that you may have earned through college, whenever you're initially starting to get out there. And then any work accomplishments or awards you may have earned, any sort of official training. And then if you've held a security clearance, I mentioned that. And then when it comes to your work experience bullets, one takeaway I learned from someone is really prioritizing your bullets. Which ones are the most impactful? Which ones are the big key takeaways, especially specific to the job posting that you're applying for? You may want to just do a little bit of rearranging depending on what it is you're applying for. Just that way, the important ones are up at the top, because let's be honest, I've been a hiring official. I don't look at it with a fine tooth comb. So that was really all I wanted to talk to you guys about, is just share my experience, my opinions. I know I talked fast, sorry. Please let me know if you have any questions.
What questions do you have about USAJobs? We're just working in the federal government for Jerry. Got a question for you.
Yeah, how often do you update your resume?
I will be honest, I am not on top of it. My husband is the complete opposite. He just told me yesterday I need to update my resume, and he just got his job 2 months ago. I've been in my new job for 9 months and I haven't updated it, but I highly recommend you're more like my husband and you update it frequently. Because it's one of those things where I have to go back and think, what is it that I've accomplished? What type of work experience do I find that's important that I want to list? So frequent is best.
I can say as in professional, I update my resume probably every 6 months, but I'm also in academia and you have to. My CV is 20 pages at this point, so.
And that's one of the things you have to recognize is type of job. Yeah, as an academic, I've got a super long one too, but doing the regular updates, I'll do something great, and then a few months later, I'll forget how great that was, and it never makes it onto my resume. And so doing regular updates.
Something that I personally do is, maybe it's not updating my resume, but I always keep a running, I have a OneNote open that's essentially any sort of kudos I've received or any sort of accomplishments that I've done that I feel are impactful, or just big accomplishments that I've had throughout the year. And then those I'll even put in my performance appraisal at work, or I'll incorporate into my resume.
JeriAnn, are you still doing, is it annual performance appraisals, or do you do them more often with the NNSA?
It is annual, but you also have your progress mid-year review.
So that would be another reason to update at least every 6 months, so you're regular. Because you're constantly going through an evaluation with it.
Yeah, I find that that's the best time to update my resume, is right around appraisal time.
Yeah, and even if you're an intern with a partner organization, you can ask for a performance appraisal and have that as part of your extra documents in there, so.
There. So you said that you worked for Space Force for a short time. I'm wondering, are they hiring?
Space Force is always hiring, and my husband just came from there on the contractor side, and they are too also hiring. They are always looking for people, and really because Space Force is kind of, so it's up and running in some aspects, but some of it basically went from Air Force to Space Force. So there's those that are already pretty much set in place, but then there's those new organizations that my husband worked for where they don't have what they call billets, which is Congress hasn't approved for more federal employees. So essentially all of the work is being done by contractors. So you'll see more contractor opportunities than federal government opportunities right now until those are approved by Congress, which is going to take some time.
So what type, so contractors like Lockheed, Honeywell,
Yeah,
Boeing?
and even like my husband worked for a small business. It was an 8A company, Galapagos LLC. They have a lot of sister companies. So keep an eye out for those small businesses or even those staffing firms, because a lot of times, just because they may not be what I call the prime contract, there's also subcontract opportunities. So there's so many different tiers. There's federal government, there's prime contract, subcontractor, second sub level, third sub level. So there's a lot of different types of opportunities to support the federal government.
With those subcontractors, will they, so one of the big things is clearances. Will subcontractors help you get through that clearance and maybe make it easier to jump to a federal level position?
Definitely. That is your foot in the door for working for the Department of Defense or Department of Energy when it comes to our national security. Is you just want your foot in the door when it comes to like getting your security clearance and just getting that background of having knowledge in national security.
What other questions? So what is the job outlook looking there in Albuquerque? Or do you have a lot of opportunities open?
I think so. I feel like Kirtland is growing substantially. Air Force is getting a lot of new organizations in. I can't name them offhand because they go by number convention. It's so hard. But new organizations are joining Kirtland from different states. I don't know why they're relocating, but they are really relocating to Kirtland, which is good for us. And then it just seems like Sandia Labs is growing, and same for NNSA. I just think where we are in the state of our country, national security is the utmost important. So we are trying to make sure that we stay ahead of our enemies. So I think there's a lot of openings and a lot of potential for you guys if you guys are interested in the national security realm.
So, JeriAnn, you came in as you did an internship as part of, is that part of your master's or just your undergrad? Or did
It
you
was
do both?
after I received my master's actually that I got into the internship program, which was weird because you usually kind of do an intern program while you're in school. But really this type of program I was a full-time employee, had already received my master's, and it was essentially a program where I was training to become a contracting professional in the federal government. So they gave me 3 years to work towards it. They have a lot of formal training requirements. So I had to go out of state for long periods of time to accomplish that. Luckily now COVID happened, so people get to sit at home and take those classes. But yeah, once I took all of those classes within 3 years, every year I actually got a grade increase. It was a really, really great program. So I started off as a GS9, then I skipped to an 11 after a year. And then the next year I got a GS12. And then after the GS12, then I was able to apply to different job postings if I wanted to within Air Force, as long as I stayed with them for 3 years. And then another perk was I did get my student loans paid for. So that was awesome.
Oh, also, JeriAnn, what like licenses or certificates has the government, is your position paid for? Like becoming certified, I know they have like program managers, but which ones have you done?
So actually it's all very specific to federal government. So it's all their own training that I've received. I recommend if you get hired with a contractor or subcontractor is to take advantage of the commercial certifications, because I feel like the federal government is in this pendulum shift where they are looking more towards the commercial way of thinking and looking more at those types of certifications.
So like HR certifications, SHRM certifications, there are contract management certifications, green belt, black belt, lead to
Project management, program management.
those are all certifications. You get in with a contractor, a lot of times they'll help pay for those certifications because it's to their advantage, but then it also increases your hireability in other positions as well. Derek?
So you've worked in several different positions in the federal government. Like, what is your work-life balance?
It's all varied. So as a contract specialist, it was definitely more flexible. But once I gained the authority to basically obligate the government, and when I say authority, it's unlimited authority, so I have no dollar value to it. I could commit, like I said, 4 billion if I wanted to. Obviously, there's approvals along behind it, but it is a more stressful job because of the weight and responsibility that I'm putting on. At the end of the day, when I commit the government $4 billion, that's my signature. So I think once I gained that special authority within the federal government is where things got a little stressful, but I must say I love my job. Full passion for contracting. Joel probably thinks I'm crazy because he did the job for a little while, but that's partly why I left Sandia to go to the federal government, because I just knew how different and how superior it was to the federal government that I wanted to proceed with it that way.
You can commit $4 billion. I had a $500,000 limit. And then if I wanted to get, so I did a contract over 20 million. Someone like JeriAnn, probably you're the one looking over the $20 million contract now, aren't you? Yeah. So if I had to do a $20 million plus contract, I had to please every whim of my JeriAnn. Like anything that they wanted, I had to do, no questions asked. Where she gets to make that type of authority. And there is stress to it, but
There is definitely stress to it, but there's just so much to take away. One of my leaders recently made me think about it, and it made me feel good. And I wanted to share with you guys is being in the federal government, being in a position that supports and helps defend our country is special, because when we join the federal government, you take an oath. When you receive your security clearance, no matter what type of clearance, if it's the lowest to the highest level, you take another oath. So not many people get to say that they work under an oath. And I just really, when he said that, I just really valued that. And I had to sit there for a few minutes and say, wow, I do work under an oath, just like anyone in a military uniform. I must say the Air Force really made me feel like an airman at times. Although I wasn't in uniform, I was considered an airman. So it's somewhat of an old school mentality working for the federal government, but a lot of times it feels good because you're doing good deed. And I think another reason why I'm okay with being a little stressed or going that extra mile is having that special warrant, the limited authority to obligate the government. Not a lot of people get to say that. It's such a unique job, and I really love it.
Just to second that, like Briget mentioned at the very beginning, her stepdad had worked 30 plus years in Sandia. That's common. Like people that get that federal government bug, they understand that passion, that commitment that JeriAnn just mentioned, and they're in it. Like when I left after 6 years, I almost had to hide because I didn't meet that 20, 30 year commitment that a lot of these individuals have in the government. And thankfully, I was able to convince them that I was teaching the future federal students, but that's, like JeriAnn mentioned, there's that commitment, that passion. And then when you're working in those positions, they build you into it. Like you just become a part of it. It's a great experience to be a part of that type of organization.
Yeah, and if anyone's ever interested in the contracting field, Joel, I'm happy to let you give them my contact information. Happy to share my experience. And I mean, like, let me give you an example. My sister's in construction contracting for the Air Force, and she gets to fly in a couple of their planes just because she did construction projects in their hangars. She basically rebuilt like 2 different hangars for 2 different planes that reside on our base. So that's really cool. You get to see what it is you supported, even though all I did was paperwork, or all she did was paperwork and signed away. She got to really see how it helped our mission.
Yeah, they're awesome like that. If you ever come to my office, I've got posters from when I supported the Tonopah test range, and they do everything to make you feel a part of their group. Like, I didn't get to go on a plane, but that's still.
I think she's crazy. She's so excited. I can't do it.
I got to sit in an F-16 once, but that was as close as I got.
Still cool. That's still awesome.
Yeah.
I have pictures of me riding on a rocket while we were trying to clean it at the museum. We gotta go for.
Yeah.
I'm on top of a rocket cleaning it. Like, it's cool stuff like that you get to be a part of.
Yeah, and I was the main contracting officer for Air Force Headquarters Safety Center, and I did random service contracts for them. And one day I got to see like a report that they wrote up, which is an aircraft had crashed, and if my contract wouldn't have been in place, they wouldn't have been able to do the appropriate investigations to prevent that crash from happening again. And then I also helped with a service contract keep this sort of device up to date and continuously working every day to make sure that our pilots were able to gain some sort of data to make sure that it was safe to fly, to also prevent wrecks. So it's amazing what you end up doing.
Any other questions?
So with the cover letter, how long should that be? Like, should it be a page or more?
I personally would recommend being brief on that, because your resume's got all of the meat to it. Really, maybe in the cover letter, making sure that you kind of are being specific to that organization that you're applying for, and really expressing how it's of interest to you is one recommendation I have.
So just make it more, so it's more personal why you want.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just reviewed applications for a position we had, and one was like, hey, I love the outdoors, I want to work for you. And they did not get an interview. The other was, wow, your mission is really great, and this is my education, and I have these skills and this experience to offer. She got the interview. But that, yeah, she did her homework and she tied her skills and experience to it.
That's what because I've been applying to some USA jobs and stuff. So yeah.
It's a hassle.
It's not easy. So I give you guys kudos for continuously trying. It'll pay off, I promise.
All right, any last questions before we let JeriAnn go?
Yeah, say hi to the Sandias for me.
I will talk to them on the daily, sit with them.
Thank you, JeriAnn. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Clara, do you have any final comments?
I mean, just thank you all so much for coming, and thank you, JeriAnn, for being with us today. And yeah, please reach out to either JeriAnn or me or Joel or Briget. You're all more than happy to talk with you guys about, applying for anything, USAJobs, or just general advice, mentoring, anything like that. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And there are still plenty of snacks, so please take some with you. So
yeah, and I'll put in next week on the 22nd, we have the Career Fair and the Public Land Employment Day. So there will be a lot of folks from federal land management agencies that are there to answer questions like this. It doesn't mean you have to work for a federal land management agency, but they do have positions, everything from administration to wildlife, and it's a great place just to go in and talk to them.
22nd of this month.
The 22nd in the ballroom.
Yeah, Wednesday, 10 to 2. So come dress up nice, bring some resumes with you. It'll be great.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
I'll let you edit stuff there.
Recording.
Sarah, thanks for organizing this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for putting together, getting us all together. It's great.
Of course. Yeah, yeah, we're.
So I was now for Heat for 2.5 years, and then I went to get my PhD law and under the American Union on.
We had one chat question.